19, 20, 21 are two stories that are the conclusion of the book of Shoftim, called a Coda. These are two stories, and the two stories are connected in the most obvious way, because each of the two stories twice mentions that in those days there's no king. So all of this is happening because there's no king. And not only that, but actually the last words of the book, the very last pasuk in chapter 21, is so this is the overall theme of both stories. And clearly, since both stories are extremely negative, the inference that we draw is that the book, at least the last 5 chapters, is calling for kingship. There are some, as I mentioned last week, who believe that within the book of Shoftim there are two voices, that within the early part of the book, essentially it's a critique of kingship and it's an anti-monarchic book. And in the last 5 chapters are the opposite. There's a different voice which sees kingship as minimally necessary, if not good. My own personal view is that's not the case, but that's what's discussed in general. So I just wanted to have some more thoughts about the story of Don. We're in chapter 18. And so first of all, after the class last week, Gitti came over here and mentioned something to me, so I've been thinking about it all week. And actually, it's an important point. It fits in, it's related to what we have discussed in the past, 2 weeks ago, and it also is last time we met, and it's relevant to other things as well. It's interesting. Because the place that B'nai Dan capture is called Laish. The place is called Laish. That's found in chapter 18. And let's find the verse here, Pasuk. This is,
29.
well, let's see, chapter 18 before that. When they first, 7, that sounds like 7. Vayelchu chameshet anoshim vayavo Laisha. They came to Laish, and they see the people in Laish, and that we saw last week. The people live in tranquility and peace. Nobody bothers them, etc. But they're far away from anybody else. They're far from the Tzidonim. And the verse number 7, which is a difficult verse syntactically, but I think should be understood the following way. So Vayechu chameshet anoshim, it's on page 558 in this translation. Vayavo Laisha, come to Laish. Vayiru et ha'am asher b'kirba yoshevet lovetach ki mishpat Tzidonim shoketu boteach. So they see them sitting in peace, like the Tzidonim live. It means they have some, they live in peace. It's a very safe place, and it's a very, all their needs are being met. It says, V'yein machlim davar ba'aretz yoresh etzer, probably means there is none to disturb them, to mistreat them, and V'yein probably goes also on the next part, which is yoresh etzer, there's no hereditary ruler. Hereditary rule means there's no king. So the point is, there's no king. Were there a king, presumably, then there would be protection for the people, but given the fact that there's no king, there's no protection, so they are actually vulnerable. Urechokim heimam b'tzidonim, they're far from the tzidonim. V'davar in lahem im adam, they have no matter with anybody. Davar often means a legal matter. They have no quarrel with anybody. They live by themselves in peace and tranquility. They don't bother anybody. No one to this point has bothered them. But they have no protections. But the place is called Laish. And this place will be captured by Dan. Now what's interesting about Laish, this was Gitti's point, that Laish means a lion. A Laish is a lion.
What?
Lion, Lion. A lion. So, Ari, Laish is a lion. Now, what's interesting, of course, is that in the previous story of Shimshon, who was from Dan, and Shimshon is, of course, fighting the Philistines, but he's also in conflict with the Jews, and in particular, the tribe which tries to hand him over to the others, and presumably the leading tribe, and the tribe that is mentioned in the beginning of Shoftim, in the very beginning of the book, because the book begins with the question, who shall lead us in the fight against the Canaanites? And the answer, God's response is Yehuda Yaleh, is Yehuda. Now we know Yehuda, actually in Jacob's blessing, is called the lion. So the point is that one can read in the lion, and we know that Shimshon also kills a lion. He's more powerful than the lion, one might say. He sort of takes the lion's place as king of the forest. So the point is that the tension between Yehuda and Dan that we saw in the Shimshon story can be seen here as well, because what Dan is doing is going off on their own, doing their own thing, and capturing their own piece of land. So one can read the Laish, one can see again that the story of Dan and Shimshon being from Dan, and the continuation, one can see again a further connection between the two stories. So I was very curious about this. So I took a look at the Shevet Dan, how Dan is represented, and actually it's very interesting, because where Shevet Dan in the blessings in Sefer Bereshit, Shevet Dan is blessed by Jacob. Yehi Dan nachash alei derech shififon alei orach. So Dan is actually a snake. A nachash, a shififon related to the curse of the snake, that God curses the snake in the beginning of the Torah. Hu yeshuf charosh v'ata teshufenu cave. So shififon is a snake, crawls on the ground. So Dan is represented in Jacob's blessings in chapter 49 as a snake that bites the heel of the horse and the rider falls off. That's done in Sefer Bereshit. But in the blessings at the end of the Torah, in Zot HaBracha, Dan is represented differently. U'dan Amar, Dan Gur Aryeh Yizanek Ben HaBashan. So it's interesting that in the blessings in Zot HaBracha, Moshe's blessings, their Dan is not represented as a snake, actually, represented as a lion. Now, Yizanek Ben HaBashan, he jumps from the Bashan. Now, the tribe of Dan is not in the Bashan, because Bashan is further east. So Yizanek Ben HaBashan may refer to the lion, actually. Maybe a metaphor for the lion. That's what Tigay suggested. But in any event, he seems to be a lion. Now, it is true that in Zot HaBracha, he's not the only one who's called a lion. Shevet Gad is also called a lion. There's Lavi is also a lion. So the point is, but it is interesting that Dan is represented in one place as a snake who attacks in stealth and bites the horse, the rider falls off, and the other place is actually a lion. But the idea that Shevet Dan is in conflict with not just Yehuda, but rather in conflict with all the other tribes, in the sense that the book of Shoftim is the first part's about division of the land. Each tribe has their own piece of land. Now we have a tribe that decides on their own to take either a different piece of land or an additional piece of land. So that was very interesting about the Shevet Dan. Okay, that's the first point I wanted to make in conjunction with last week. Now let's just continue the story here for a while, and then there's two other main points I wanted to make about the story. We'll finish this and start the next one, hopefully, if we have time. So we have this five people being sent by the Shevet Dan to spy out the land. The spying out the land is found on page 557. Vayishachu b'nei Dan mimishpachtam chamisha anashim mikzotam anashim b'nei chayil. So they send these 5 b'nei chayil, valiant men, warriors, mitzara u'mei eshta'ol l'ragel et haaretz u'lechakra. And they say, instruct them to spy out the land, l'ragel u'lechakra, and they say to them, l'chu chikru et haaretz, and they tell them to do this. Vayavo har Ephraim ad Beit Micha vayalinu sham. So as we know, they make a stop off in the house of Micha. Micha has his house, which he has turned into a temple of sorts, and he houses priests, who's not a priest, he has a Levi, and he has his idols. He has his idols. He has his 4 things we know: pesel umasecha, ephod utrafim. Pesel umasecha So Jerome mentioned this last week. This could be right, I think. Sometimes the vav in biblical Hebrew doesn't mean a vav. It means which is. So pesel masecha could mean he had both a pesel and a masecha, or it could mean he had a masecha, which is a pesel, which I think is right, actually. Pesel masecha. Pesel umasecha, pesel masecha. In any event, it's a place where the service of God, because his mother gave it to Hashem, but God is being served through idolatrous practices by the non-priest who's a Levi who is being hired or rented by Micha. Meanwhile, these five soldiers, one might say, spies, but they're armed. Five of the Bnei Chayil, at least, five dangerous people stop off in the house, and they recognize the voice of this Levi, who has left his home and traveled from Har Ephraim from Beit Lechem to Har Ephraim. It's also interesting, he travels from Beit Lechem Yehuda to go to Har Ephraim, where he meets Dan. It's another interesting connection. So they ask him, why are you here? What are you doing here? And his response in the fourth verse is on page 558. Vayomer Alehem, Kozov v'chazov asari micha, vayiskireni, vahilo l'kohen. He makes it clear that he's for hire. He has hired me out as a priest. So they ask him to inquire of God for them on the path in which they go. And the Kohen, as he's called here, says, go in peace. Nochach Hashem darkachem, right? God views with favor the mission you are on. It's not clear he knows what the mission is. It's not clear he actually did inquire. But in any event, that's what he says to them. And now we have the story of these five.
This is sort of reminiscent of what's happening in the book of Jeremiah in terms of priesthood, in terms of good predictions and false.
Right, good predictions, yeah. In this particular case, I mean, I wouldn't say it's Nochach Hashem, but in terms of, from their perspective, they will be successful. It's not that hard to be successful when you have a big army attacking defenseless people, but as we'll see. But so there is obviously a very powerful critique over here. I did want to add a couple of points, but let's continue with that. We started last week. So now we have the description. These five people go to Laish. They see the people. Shoketu boteach, ein machlim davar ba'aretz yoresh etzer, rechokim hema mitzidonim, v'davar ein lehem imadam. So they see these people. They're described as living in tranquility, peace. Yoshevet lovetach. The word betach appears twice over here. They are both Yoshevet lovetach in the beginning of the 7th pasuk, and they are shoketu boteach. So they're, I would say, unsuspecting is secure and unsuspecting. And let's keep that word in mind. And the five of them that now return to Dan, Sarah and Eshta'ol, and Vayomru Achehem Ma'atem. Who are you? What has transpired? Vayomru Chuma v'na'aleh alehem. Let us rise up against them. Ki ra'inu et ha'aretz v'nei tova ma'od. The land is very good. It's tova. It's a very good land. V'atem machshim al teyatzlu lechet lavo l'reshet et ha'aretz. Hurry up to possess the land. Okay. Kivoachem. When you get there, tavo el am boteach. You'll see people that are secure. V'ya'aretz rachavat yadayim ki netana Elohim biyedchem makom asher ein sham machzor kol davar asher ba'aretz. So the description of an unsuspecting people, and in particular, apart from the word betach, the other description, which is very striking, is v'ya'aretz hinei rachavat v'ya'aretz rachavat yadayim. Now that expression rachavat yadayim, that's an expression that we recall from the story of Shechem. In fact, not only do we recall the term Rachavat Yadayim, that's when they're negotiating with Shechem after the Dinah story, this week's parsha. So the point is, and then they say, the Aretz Rachavat Yadayim with Nehem. Let's just find that verse actually. Chamor says it. Let's just find that. He's talking to the people of Shem to convince them to make a deal. Right? So that's found in chapter 34, verse number... here it is, 21. Hanashim shleimim em itanu, v'yeshvu ba'aretz v'yischaru ota, v'yaretz hinei rachavat yadayim lifneihem. The land is large enough for them. We can accommodate them without a problem, and then we'll be able to take their daughters and give our sons to them, etc. So the point is, in addition to the Rachavat Yadayim description of Shechem, the city which is about to be captured, when they do come and attack them, after they all are circumcised, it says, so they can't fight back. So it says that Shimon and Levi came, Vayavo ala ir betach. They came against the city betach. We have the betach word betach because they know there's no one to fight. So over here we have a parallel situation in the story of Laish. They're coming betach, as it were, because there's people that can't fight, and there's no one to help them, and there's no king. And the Shechem connection is very interesting. The Shechem connection is interesting because the story of Shechem in the Chumash, in this week's parasha, actually, yesterday's Kriya, the story of Shechem is significant because, among other things, it is the first symbolic conquest of the land. I mean, Abraham has a symbolic conquest as well when he defeats the 4 kings. That's his. But over here, it's an actual conquest of the land itself. What?
Also buys it.
That's right. In both stories, right, in both stories, both in Abraham's narrative and the Yaakov's narrative, the land is possessed both by military conquest of a type, but also through purchase. In the case of Shechem, Yaakov buys, at the end of chapter 33, buys a plot of land in Shechem. Me'ok Sita. And then in 34, it's through conquest. That's very important, actually, because understanding that Shechem is the symbolic conquest in the land. It's actually the 4th generation. It's what God had said to Abraham in the covenant. The 4th generation shall return to the land, can be 3 generations of suffering, and the 4th generation of return can be read as Sefer Bereshit as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They live in the land, but they don't possess the land. In fact, Jacob suffers too. But the 4th generation shall possess the land. So Shechem actually is foreshadowing the conquest of the land. And now what we have with Laish, in the parallel story of Laish, we have conquest of the land. And not only that, by the way, but what makes it even more interesting is that in both the actual conquest of the land and in the story of Laish, there's another feature that's common to both, which is the spies. So the spies are and even the language. Remember when the spies come back, and then initially there is resistance not initially, the people don't want to attack because they say we can't fight the Canaanite because they're too strong for us. And we also saw giants in the land, Hanephilim, and they think we're grasshoppers, and we see ourselves as grasshoppers and all that. So, and then Yoshua speaks up, and Kalev, and they say, no, alone na'lev yorashna wosa. Let us go up and attack. Tovah ha'aretz ma'od ma'od, which is exactly the language over here with Laish. We have to go. Let us go and possess it. It's a good land. What did they say that? Yeah, in verse number 9. Kumo v'na'le alehem re'inu et ha'aretz hinei tovah ma'od. Atem machshim, right? What are you waiting for? It sounds like Yoshua and Kalev in the story of the Meraglim. The only point is, though, there's one small difference between them. That the land that is spoken of in the Torah is the land which Israel is supposed to possess. Dwelling in that land are the 2 peoples whom God wishes to dispossess from the land. One are the Canaanites, and the other are the giants. That's actually a very important point, not obvious to most people, but it happens to be true. That in the land, there are both Canaani, Amori, Canaani, the 7 nations, but the land is also possessed by the giants. For example, in Abraham's symbolic conquest of the land, he defeats the 4 kings who capture the land, and among the people they defeat, basically, and a big emphasis, are the giants. Vayakut Rifaim b'Ashterot Kadayim, v'yeta Zuzim b'Ham, v'yeta Emim b'Shavei. In fact, almost all of them are giants. Outside of Amori, and Amori is the one Canaanite nation who's also a giant, by the way, as it says in Amos, Asher Gova, right? Gova Arazim Gavo, Chasonu, right? So the point is, fundamentally, the ones that Abraham symbolically defeats through the four kings are the giants. Rephaim, Amim, Zuzim. These are, Chori is another powerful nation. These are all giants. These are very, very powerful nations. They possess the land. So in the spy episode, when the spies come back, they say two things. We saw the people in the land, they're very strong. And we also saw the Nephilim. Those are the giants. That's a very important point. In the Tanakh, the one who actually succeeds in fully possessing the land, the military man who succeeds in fully possessing the land. Most of it's captured already in Sefer Shoftim. But the one remaining piece of land, which is Jerusalem, is defeated, captured by David, who defeats both the Yevusi, who are Canaanites, but he also defeats the Philistines, who in the book of Samuel are tied in with the Rephaim, with the giants. The best example would be Goliath, but there are other examples too. And he defeats them. Where does he defeat the Philistines in Jerusalem? A street I've been on many times. Emek Rephaim. And Ben Ami restaurant. So the point is, now they're building a subway there or something. I don't know. Okay, anyway. Now there'll be a real fight, Emek Rephaim. That's where you get the real battles. Anyway, point is, so here, in other words, what you have is the opposite. In other words, what you have over here is, they have all the right ideas about conquest, but they're capturing the wrong people. We remember from the Chumash how the Chumash was so makpid not to fight other nations. You read the beginning of Devarim, you can't start with Moab, or Tatzares, Moab, or Ammon, Moab, Edom. Don't start with them. Only Kanani. Sichon is on the other side of the Jordan, but Sichon Melech HaEmori, he's a Canaanite. And here we have a group of people leaving the land, whether they fully leave it or not, and they're doing their own thing, but they're possessing a land which is the wrong land to possess.
Do you remember, by the way, when is the last time the Nephilim are mentioned?
Nephilim are mentioned?
When did they disappear?
Nephilim the word Nephilim is found, the last time I believe it's mentioned is in that chapter of the spies, which will be chapter 14 of Bamidbar. But the Rephaim, which are also, they're mentioned in Shmuel. Towards the end of Shmuel, in the last four, we'll get to the end of Shmuel today, but it's very interesting. The last four chapters of Shmuel, which form its own little unit, chapters 21, 22, 23, 24, which are in chiastic structure, A, B, C, C, B, A, and the B are the strong men of David, the Giborim, who appear twice. They appear in chapter 23, and they also appear at the end of chapter 21. You can see for yourself. And in 21, the Giborim of David, his great strong men, defeat the sons of the so-called Rapha, who's the female mother of these four powerful warriors who are giants. They're also Philistines. So and one of them is named Goliath, actually. So the point is, actually, the four of them are essentially Goliath split into four pieces. So the point is, there you have the Rephaim. And that is actually a very important point because why is this an important point? Because what it suggests to us that the giants are there, the giants possess the land, it's not just about the Canaanites who are later, but there's something about this land, something about taking the land back from, one might say, God's enemies who are giants. And I would add into the mix, and I don't want to discuss it now, but that what's very striking about Abraham's defeat of the four kings, and the four kings defeat all these powerful nations, that one of the nations they defeat is actually Amalek. Sedeha Amaleki, Ein Mishpat, right? Amalek, of course, isn't born till later. Amalek is Esau's grandson. Born yesterday's parsha. But the point is, there's something else about Amalek, you see, that Amalek is described in the context of Amim, Rephaim, Zuzim, and all that. There's something about Amalek that takes us back to the beginning of the beginning of creation. It's this force that tries to co-opt God's space. The snake is basically the same thing. The snake attempts to and succeeds in defeating God's plan, in not allowing God to establish God's space, which is the Garden of Eden. And the Nachash, through his wiles, actually succeeds, attacks God by attacking God's weakness, which is the human being, and actually succeeds in driving the human being out of the space. So there's something about these other nations, not just Canaan, but the Rephaim and all the others, that speaks to something very deep about the Gan Eden story and about the world. There's a struggle, actually, as it's represented here between these different forces. In any event, here we have these Shevet Dan is going to attack them, and there will be no problem. Kavo Achem, you'll see this on Boteach, etc. So they travel. In verse number 11, they travel. Sheish Meyot Ish Chogur Klei Milchama. They travel with 600 men who are strong men who have weapons. So they're mobilized. Now, 600 is a significant number, clearly, but it's not the whole tribe, which suggests to us, it actually is a question, I don't know, what happened to the rest of the tribe? Did they all follow afterwards? Or does Dan retain its place in where they initially are supposed to be, and then they have an additional place, or maybe a main base up north, but they don't forsake the place in central Israel, what they call today Gush Dan, Tel Aviv, basically, around Tel Aviv area. So the point is, I'm not sure about that, but fundamentally, when we think of Dan in the Bible, Midan v'Yad Beersheva, we think of Dan as being in the north. So I was thinking about another interesting point. Yes, sir.
There's another dawn. This is with Dvorah. She says, "Uva dawn loma yagur oniyos."
Yes.
Asher yoshav lechof yamim yal mifrotzov yishkon.
Yes, that's true.
There's another schap on where dawn settles.
Right.
Along the coast.
Right, but they're along the coast. That's true.
And the seafaring people.
But if you've been to Tel Aviv, it's also along the coast. Right? No, to them it sounds like actually they're still in Tel Aviv or the Riviera or whatever. But the point is, no, that's true. Right, so they are seafaring. Why do they stay with the boats? Yes.
I'm confused. Who are the people who live in Laish?
They are, we're not told exactly who they are. They're not Canaanites. They're certainly not described as Canaanites.
They're not Israelites either.
No, they're not Israelites. No, not at all. They're a foreign nation. They seem to be connected to Sidon in some way. The text doesn't say who they are. It doesn't intimate they're Canaanites. That's my point. It certainly doesn't intimate that at all. There's the people who mind their own business. They're far from everybody. They don't have they're not called Canaanites. Now, they may even in fact be Canaanites, but they're not called Canaanites. By the way, I'll give you an example of this, not from this week's parsha, but from next week's parsha. We know that in the book of Breshit, marrying a Canaanite is a bad thing. It is sometimes even that which disqualifies you from the blessing. Certainly true of up to at least the fourth generation. It's a disqualifier because, let's say, your third generation, Esau marries the Canaanite women. It means his children will be half Canaanites. Like that can't work. You can't be in the covenantal blessing to possess the land of Canaan if half your family are actually Canaanites. So that's a disqualifier. But Yehuda, now, Yehuda does marry a Canaanite in the beginning, Batish Kanani Yushmoshua, that is for sure. But at the end of the day, Yehuda's line doesn't come from that wife. She dies, and they have 3 children, but none of the first 2 die, and the third is named Shelah. He doesn't amount to anything, right? The descendants, actually, of Judah, the kingly line, comes from Tamar. Now, who is Tamar?
His daughter-in-law.
No, she is his daughter-in-law, true. But where is she? Doesn't say she, no. Here's the point. Here's what some people say. Well, if she's living in the land, she's a Canaanite. This you'll read in many places. Okay, that betrays an ignorance of how to read a text. It doesn't matter if she's a card-carrying Canaanite or not. In the text, she's not a Canaanite. The Torah goes out of its way, actually, but she must have been a Canaanite. Don't ever think in those terms, because that's not what you're studying Chumash.
Was she a descendant of Ruth?
Ruth descends from her.
It descends from her. Okay.
Yeah, Ruth is much later. Ruth comes from Ruth is a Moabite, but Ruth's husband Boaz is descendant. Ewa told those parents, of course, and she's mentioned in the book of Ruth. Asher Yoda Tamar Yehuda. But the point is, the book goes out of its way. The book being Sefer Bereshis goes out of its way to contrast the first wife with the second. The first wife is Badish Kanani. In fact, we don't even know her name. We just know that she's the daughter of a Canaanite. With the second person, we know her name. But we have no idea who she is. And the point of the Chumash is, she's living in the land of Canaan. She's probably a Canaanite. Don't think that. Because it doesn't matter where she's living. It matters only that the book has decided that she's not a Canaanite. She's nothing. She's not a non-Canaanite. She's not a yes Canaanite. She's Tamar. And the same thing is true. I give it as an example about Laish. There's no intimation in this text that they're Canaanites. Maybe they were Canaanites. I have no idea. But the point of the story, I think, which essentially is a critique of Shevet Dan and a blistering critique of Shevet Dan, we haven't gotten to the full critique will become clear in a few minutes. The point is, here we have the Meraglim story and saying all the right things, but they're going in the wrong direction. So it's the opposite. Okay, yes, Alan, you want to say something?
No, but is it because the book is going out of its way to tell us who the character of the person is? It's as if Tamar overcomes whatever genetics are involved and tradition. We're reading about her character,
right?
And that's what became relevant.
That's a nice formulation, and that may be one of the reasons that the book of Ruth actually is deeply connected to Yehuda and Tamar. Because the point of the book of Ruth, forget all the rabbinic interpretations of how he's allowed to marry Ruth. That's all very interesting. But the book of Ruth has a different interpretation, and that is, Ruth, we don't care where she comes from, actually. She's Abraham's spiritual daughter. She could be Amalek for all we care. Doesn't make no difference. Because she is actually Abraham's daughter in terms of her behavior. So how you get around the legalities of it, okay, the Talmud deals with that. But that's not the book's concern. The book doesn't deal with that at all. The book never suggests there's a halachic issue with Ruth. Never suggests anything of the sort. It suggests that people don't like her because she's a Moabite, so it suggests there's discrimination and all this. But the point is, in the description, what it's saying is, there has to be a place for a person like this. That's what it's saying, basically. Now, we'll get to the full critique of this story, which is very important critique, but I had a thought about it. Someone asked me last week in the class, and I was thinking about this. So you see, when you talk up, it actually matters to me. You know what I mean? I'm actually listening. Okay, anyway. So let's... What?
Do you remember Palti Ben Laish?
I remember him very well. What? I've said many things about him, too, actually.
Could you help us to figure out who are these people of Laish?
I don't know. Palti ben Laish is more about his name being Palti ben Laish, but I can't I have a lot to say about the Palti ben Laish, but I can't. Yeah.
The cities on the coast in
Yes.
the north were always independent cities. They were never conquered they were allowed to be independent because often they were the seafarers.
They are the seafarers, right.
Yeah, the Phoenicians and whatever. So they were traditionally independent and left alone.
Right, but Sor and Sidon are actually countries.
Yeah, no, I mean like Sidon.
Sidon is a country, right. Well, Sor and Sidon, Tyre and Sidon are the two main ones.
You know, what empires
I mean, other empires didn't, right. I mean, it's interesting that Sor in particular, the prophets prophesy about the nations, different nations. Yechezkel, for whatever reason, has a lengthy, and I mean lengthy, description of Tzor. So I think the longest description of it. It's funny to see it there. So there's something about Tzor which is very interesting. I'm not going to get into it now, but yeah. But these are nations. Laish it says it's far from Sidon. They live Kimishpat Sidonim, but it doesn't mean they are Sidonim, but they're far away from them. In any event, so they're all going to go now to defeat these helpless people, and they leave Kiryat Yarim, and they encamp in a place called Machane Dan. We spoke about that last week in verse 12. Because Shimshon, it says, the Spirit of God began to beat him in Machane Dan, which suggests that this story is actually out of chronological order. Okay, then we'll maybe deal with that as well, not right now. And they're passing through. And they're walking, headed north, basically. And they make a stop at the house of Micha. This is where they first stopped. They stopped at Micha's house. Remember, he has an inn there, a malone or whatever. But that's not why they're stopping there. Vayalu chameshet anoshim, haochim l'ragel et haaretz, layish, vayomru el achehem, hayidatem ki yesh babatim ha'ela efodu trafim pesel masecha, atad umatasu. You know, here we have a pesel masecha, we have efod trafim. You know what you should do. Remember, by the way, that the ephod is used to inquire of God. Maybe the trafim are as well. But the ephod is used to inquire of God. In the book of Shmuel, we have several times where you inquire of God through the ephod. And in particularly, you inquire of God when it comes to military matters. That's in the book of Shmuel. The ephod is used to inquire of God in military situations. They're about to go and they're engaged in a military expedition. So, you know, it will be... You know what to do, they say to the others. So, Vayasubu Shama, Vayavola Beit Hanar HaLevi Beit Micha. So they go to the house of the Levi. Vayishalu Lo Shalom, choir of peace, right? V'shesh me'ot ish chagurim klei milchamtam nitzavim petach hashar. You have this picture now. So you have these guys going into the house, speaking peaceably to the Levi. Meanwhile, there's 600 armed men standing by the gate. So they say, Elo bo beit micha, vayichu et pesel ha'efod, v'et ha'trafim, v'et ha'masecha. They took all, pesel, efod, trafim, masecha. Here it sounds like pesel and masecha are two different things. Vayomer alehem ha'kohen, ma atem osim. What are you doing here? You're grabbing these things. Vayomer lo hacharesh. Be silent. Sim yodcha al picha, v'lechi imanu. Be quiet and come with us. Hey, Kohen. Be an advisor, father figure, an advisor, and a priest. And then they say to him, Hatov heyotcha Kohen lebeit ish echad, or heyotcha Kohen l'shevet u'lemishpacha. What's better, to work for one guy? Small operation here. We'll offer you a big promotion. You can be the high priest of a whole tribe, right? So, vayitav lev Kohen. Vayikach et ha'efod, v'et ha'trafim, v'et ha'pesel, vayavo. So it sounds like he took him himself. Remember, he had told them initially, basically what he says is, I'm looking for work. I'm a guy, I'm a gun for hire. A hire, exactly. The guy here rented me out. That's what so they understand. He's for rent. We got a better job for you. It's a big promotion. So he takes all this stuff, he leaves the house. Vayiflu vayelechu. Does it belong to him or does it belong to Micha? It's clear it belongs to Micha because he had stolen the money. It was bought with stolen money. That's how the chapter begins. It's bought with stolen, stole from his mother, and then he returns the money to his mother. His mother also cursed the one who stole it. Baruch b'ni Hashem, and she said, I'm makdish it. I'm giving a batana for hegdish. I'll give 200 of this 1,100 for the to build an idol. And you can have you have your house of God, and you'll serve God through the idol. That's how the story begins. So it begins as it's problematic from the very beginning. Meanwhile, they have their priests too. They have their idol, their priest. They fold trafim the works. Hey mehir chikmi beit micha, v'anoshim asher babatim asher in beit micha nizaku. So there's an alarm set off, and Micha's household, he has several people in his house. They now are moving on B'nai Dan, and they catch up with them. Vayikru al B'nai Dan, vayasebu p'neihem, and Dan turns around. Vayomer Micha, malacha ki nizakta. What's your problem? They say to Micha. And Micha says, what do you mean? Vayomer etelo hay asher asiti l'kachtem. You stole my God. V'yeta kohen. You stole my priest. V'atelechu, and you're leaving. Umaliyod, I have nothing left. Umazah tomru elai malach. What do you mean? What's wrong? You stole everything I have. You stole my idols. You stole my gods. You stole my priest. Vayomer elav b'nei Dan al tashma kol chaimanu. Be quiet. Don't raise your voice. Pen yifklu b'chem anoshim morei nefesh. Lest bitter people harm you. Yasafta nafshecha v'nefesh beitecha, and they kill you and your household too. So it's not just about you. These are people, these are bitter people, they say, referring to themselves, of course, therefore they're comrades. These are dangerous people. Vayelchu b'nei Dan l'darkam, vayar micha ki chazakim hema mimenu, vayifen, so they're stronger than he is. So what can you do? See, when there's a king, it doesn't work. Because you can always summon the king, in theory at least, if he shows up. He's always stronger. V'hem elochu et asher asa micha, et hakohen asher yolo, vayavo al layish, alam shoketu boteach, vayaku otam lefi cherev, et ha'ir sarfu ba'esh, v'yed batzil. Nobody can save them. Ki rechokai mitzidon, v'davar enu hem im adam, v'i ba'emek asher lebeit rechov. They lay in a valley. It's far from Sidon. No one can save them. The implication being, were there a person to save them, this would never happen. This kind of lawlessness would not be tolerated. But here it is. They destroy the city. Vayikru Shem Oir Dan, B'Shem Dan Avihem, Asher Yulad Yisrael, brought unto Israel. V'Yulam Layish Shem Oir Rishonah, but it formerly had been called Layish. It's interesting. Here, once again, you have the reversal. Right? With Jacob, he mentions Israel. Vayikra Shem Oir Beit El. V'Yulam Luz Shem Oir Rishonah. Of course, there is the opposite. There, Jacob goes to Luz, but he sanctifies the place. That's where he sees the ladder going to heaven, and he takes an oath. Someday I'll come back and build God's house. And here we have the opposite. Here we have Dan leaving their land, and changing the name. It's totally inappropriate. They have no right to be there in the first place. Now, vayakim lahem b'nei Dan et hapesa. V'yonatan ben Gershom ben, and we have mem with a little nun shin hey. So if you take out the little nun, you have ben Moshe. Hu banav hayu kohanim l'shevet Adoni ad hayom glo ta'aretz. So if we take it, it would appear that the Levi here is a Levi, is Moses' grandson. How that works out from a chronological standpoint, I'm not sure, but clearly the text identifies the Levi as Moshe's grandson. Now you might ask the question, someone did ask the question last week, Herb asked that question, and you heard it. What does it signify? Was that your question? You did ask that question. So I was thinking about last week what it signifies. I have a thought about it actually. I'm not sure it's right, but it's very interesting.
It's something indicating
Yeah.
how far from Moshe he has moved in 2 generations.
You can't move farther than this, basically,
Yeah.
right? Well, we'll see, right?
I mean,
We
I
already,
don't
by the
like
way,
this I don't like this whole episode.
well, no one likes it. It's
I don't like the way the people are behaving.
terrible, right? Yeah, no one likes it. Vayasimu et pesel micha asher asa kol yemei hayod beit Elohim b'Shilo. So the
Put those two together about the chronology.
I don't know. I don't know the answer about the chronology. It's striking, it really. I don't know. I raised the question. But clearly there's an identification. And by the way, we knew this already from before. Because when the Levi comes to the house of Micha, the verse says, Vayoel ha-Levi lo-shevet et ha-ish. Vayoel Moshe lo-shevet et ha-ish is when Moshe comes to the Kohen's house, but a real Kohen Midian. Vayoel Moshe lo-shevet et ha-ish. And over here, with the Levi, Vayoel ha-Levi lo-shevet et ha-ish, it's plays off. So the story is reminding us of Moshe. And now the question is, what is, apart from the fact that it's exactly the opposite, apart from the fact that it's a series of opposites to underscore how far we have fallen, there is something else here I think that's very interesting. So I'll tell you what I think it is. I come back to there are 2 points I want to make, and then we can start the next story. First of all, what you have emphasized over here, because it actually was unnecessary to go through this detail, but the detail is that the 5 men that are sent out are given instructions to spy out the land. When you read that, there you have the term l'ragel v'lachkar, l'ragla u'chakra, and the response when they come back of tova aretz alon alev yarashnu ota, basically, Those are all responses that we encounter when we read the spy episode in the book of Bamidbar. So clearly, it's the intention here is to call our attention to the episode of the Meraglim. So I was thinking the following: in the episode of the Meraglim, at the end of the Meraglim story, in chapter 14 of Bamidbar, so God says to Moshe, "I'll destroy them all. I've had enough with them. I'll make you a nation. Forget them. Let them all die in the desert." And Moshe says, "You can't do that. Please." He doesn't say Rachum. Erech Apayim, Hashem, Erech Apayim, Rav Chesed. So God relents. Okay, they'll wander in the desert. They won't possess the land. They won't die. And the next generation. The next day, in the morning, the people come to Moshe. They get up early in the morning. Say, right. Chatanu. They say, we have sinned. The end of chapter 14. They have sinned. We have sinned. We said the wrong thing. Now we're going to go up and fight. At the very end of chapter 14 of Bamidbar, let's find that verse. These are the Mapilim, they're called. The Mapilim is chapter 14, end of 14, page, in this translation, page 316. They say, Hinenu v'yolinu ha'makom asher amar Hashem ki chatanu. Although now Rebbe said earlier by Yaakov and Yoshua, but this is similar. Olinu, v'yalu rosh hahar, hinenu v'yolinu hamakom asher amar Hashem ki chatanu. We sinned, now we want to go up. V'yom Moshe, lama zeh atem ovrim pi Hashem hilot titzach. Don't do it. You won't be successful. Don't go. Al ta'alu, don't go up there. Ki yed Hashem b'kir b'chem, God is not with you. V'lo tidog fu lifnei v'chem, you don't go lest you be defeated by the enemy. Ki amaleki v'achnani shabu lifnechem nufatem bechorev. Ki alken shaftem be'acharei Hashem v'lo yeh Hashem b'chem. Don't try to fight. You have Canaan and Amalek. Here Amalek represents, I think, the giants, and there's Canaan. You can't defeat them without God's help, and God's not going to help you. Don't go. But they insist. Vayapilu la'alot el rosh hahar. And then it says, Varon brit Hashem u'Moshe lo moshu mikerev hamachaneh. But they go up to fight without two things. They don't have the ark. Aaron brit Hashem is not with them, and Moshe doesn't go with them. Moshe does not go with them. So I was thinking that in our story over here, when they go and fight, right? They're going and fighting, and they're taking two people with them. Who are they taking with them? Not two people. Two people, things with them. They stop at Micha's house because they want to get two things. They want to get the Peso, and they want to get the Kohen. But the Kohen is actually Moshe. No, it's Moshe's correct. They want to take with them exactly what here they can't take with them, which is in the story of the Meraglim, you can't have, Moshe doesn't go, nor does the Aaron go. But in the perverted story of the Meraglim, which is what it is, there they're taking both. They take the ark. It's not an ark. It's a pesel, right? And they're taking Moshe. It's not Moshe. It's his grandson. It's the Levi who pretends to be a Kohen, who's for hire. So that's, I think, part of this. Now there's something else here which is interesting. I thought it was very interesting, actually. Now there's something else which I wonder about. Just thought about this morning. I wonder about this, and it's the following. The story over here, it's the last verse. The last verse is, let's see. Let me get back to the place here. Yes. Vayosimu lahem et peso micha asher asa kol yemei heyot beit Elohim b'Shilo. So all of the time that God is in Shiloh, and that's a long time, all of those days, Micha's Pesel is the alternative place. Right. So it does prefigure Yeravam and Nevat, who sets up the Egel in Beit El and in Dan. He sets up his Pesel in Dan. So it prefigures that.
It's also the story of Pinchas and Hophni, the
Right, that's when Shiloh was destroyed, actually. Right, that's when Shiloh gets destroyed. So I was thinking, yes,
Did you say that the entire time that God is in Shiloh, Michas Pesel is there too?
no, is it done?
Is it done? So they took Michas Pesel and the 4 idolatrous items. They took them from Michas' house, which was a perverted Beit Elokim.
Right,
And they took it and they put it in their camp,
right.
which was a perverted use of perverted items. And so when you're saying that, and then they left it in Laish, which used to be Laish and now is done.
Right.
So, but at the end it says that they were in Shiloh.
No.
And it-
They're not in Shiloh. No.
Parallel.
It means parallel to Shiloh.
Oh, parallel.
All the time that the ark is in Shiloh, the Mishkan's in Shiloh. All the time the Mishkan is in Shiloh, they have an alternative holy space in which they have a pesel in done. And the point of that is, by the way, it's not just when it's in Shiloh, but we know that later on, Yeravam ben Nevat, when he wants to set up an alternative temple, he sets up 2 golden calves. One of them is a dun. So the point is that Shevet dun is being linked here with pesel, masecha, ephod, and also trafim. You have to wonder about this, by the way. Well, leave that out for a second. I want to make a different point, which just got me thinking about this. And that has to do with this conclusion to the book of Judges. The book of Judges concludes with 5 chapters, 2 stories, very negative stories. The first one is Pesel Micha, which is about forsaking the land, the next one is the chopping up the land, but this one is Pesel Micha, forsaking the land, setting up a separate place, and at the center of the separate place, you have a Pesel. I mean, it's unbelievable. So that's very, 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 very problematic. And the book actually suggests that it could happen for one reason. There's no king. If there were a king, this would never happen. That's what the book says. And the next story, which is about the Pilegesh Bagiva, civil war and all kinds of violence, etc., that's also possible when there's no king. But I'm focusing now on Pesel Micha. Here's what I wonder about. There is the book of Judges. The next book we have in our canon is the book of Shmuel. Both the book of Judges and the book of Shmuel have something in common, which is that at the end of the book, you have a coda. You have, in the case over here, 5 chapters in this little book. In the case of the book of Shmuel, 4 chapters. At the very end of Shmuel Bet, 21, 22, 23, 24. Those 4 chapters in Shmuel, as I mentioned before, are connected to each other. And these 2 stories are connected by virtue of the phrase, there's no king. Isha Yashar Be'erav Yaseh, which appears twice in Pesel Micha and twice in Pilegesh Bagiva. So they're linked together. And now what I wonder is the following. I wonder about this, because one of the questions that is raised by those who wrote on the book of Shmuel, and there are many who write on the book of Shmuel, is the placement of the last 4 chapters of Sefer Shmuel. Is it related to the rest of the book? Is it placed here haphazardly? No, I don't think anything's haphazard, but they think in those terms, that maybe it's haphazard. Now, what's interesting is, it's certainly not haphazard, and I've spoken about that, and I'm writing about it now. It's clear. But something struck me, having spent a lot of time on the book of Shmuel, a lot of time. I never thought of this before, that actually there's a parallel between the coda in the book of Judges and the coda in the book of Shmuel. Because the coda in the book of Shmuel, of Judges, our story makes the point that as long as Shiloh is around, there is a pesel in Israel, in a central place, and that's possible because there's no king. That's what it says. There's no king. And when there's no king, you can have within Israel an alternative sacred space, at the core of which is Pesel U'Masecha. It's mind-boggling. And this is all the way up to Shiloh. The end of the book of Shmuel, the last 4 chapters, 21, 22, 23, 24, ABC, CBA, but the last chapter of the book, that's the story of the 21 and 24 sins of the king. 21 is the story of the Givonim, how Saul has killed the Givonim, and he wasn't allowed to do that because they had taken an oath not to do that. Leave that aside. Chapter 24, the last chapter as we have it, is the story where David counts the people. David counts the people, and after he counts the people, he recognizes he did a terrible thing. The prophet comes to David and says to David, I'll give you, choose. You have 3 choices. Do you want war? Do you want famine? Do you want war? Do you want plague? And David's answer is, I don't choose. God chooses. I'm in God's hands, and God sends a plague. Many die. And then David sees the people dying, and David says, God, what are you killing the people for? These poor sheep. Kill me. Take the kingship away from me. Kill me in my father's house. And David says, go up, Aleh, go up, and bring a sacrifice in the threshing place of Goren Aravna, Aleph Resh Vav Nun Hey, which is also the word Aron. And David goes there and brings the sacrifice in this place, the place that God's angel was above. When God says, stop the plague, David sees the angel above the threshing floor of Aravna, and David brings the sacrifice, and the plague is stopped. Now clearly, Goren Aravna, in the story, even without other supporting evidence, is clearly the place of the ark, which is the temple. Goren Aravna is another name for the Beis Hamikdash. So the book of Shmuel actually ends with David discovering and setting up the eternal Beis Hamikdash. So I was saying to myself, you have 2 codas, one following the other. You have the prior book of the Bible, which is Judges, with an ending. You have the book of Samuel with a coda. In the first coda, part A of the first coda is that as long as there's no king, and as long as you have Shiloh, you're going to have idolatry. You have the idol as the alternative Shiloh, right? And the next story is going to mention Shiloh also as a place of corruption. Shiloh is in both stories, actually. You ask yourself the question, why does it mention Shiloh in verse 31? The idol was there all the days that God's temple was in Shiloh. And that's totally gratuitous, but it's not, because the very next story talks about the kidnapping of the women, which takes place in Shiloh. So the code of book A, Judges, our book, there's no king, you have no temple, the opposite. You will never be able to have a temple because there always will be idolatry. That's the first book. The second book, when David is finally establishes the kingship, when David comes to the recognition, what does it mean to be a king? That I work for God on one hand, and I work for the people on the other. I have a full understanding of it. He's even willing to say, I'll step down from it, kill me and spare them. Then God says, now you're truly a king. And if you're truly a king, you can also build my temple. So the 2 things, actually, the 2 codas, in other words, are actually connected to each other. They may sound like a trivial point to you, but if you had to wade through all the garbage that I read, it wouldn't be. Trust me. The lack of understanding of people is just beyond belief. But the truth is, this is amazing, actually. It really tells you something about that coda. It's not just there accidentally at the end of Shmuel. It's there for a very good reason. And it's not just about a fitting conclusion to Sefer Shmuel. It's about a parallel to the previous book. That's an interesting theory. Yes, what do you want to say, my friend?
I'm sorry, I'm confused because I thought it might be a different biblical story. Someone spoke something about 6 or 16 spies someplace else.
6 or what?
6 or 16. Shades or, Shades X-ray, 6 or 16 spies, somebody else.
No. I don't know about 6 or 6. The story here
It's 5.
5 spies.
Right.
The story in the Torah is 12 spies.
12?
12 spies.
Yeah, no, it's different.
One from each tribe. No, the numbers are different. That's
Okay,
true.
it's 12.
The numbers are different, but the story of the spies is parallel. What do you want to say?
Okay,
Yeah.
12 then.
Yeah.
Good.
Go ahead, one.
What I'm wondering is whether this whole story about this, the pestle and whatever, is an attempt to set up a separate entity of the Jewish people, of the Hebrews.
That's very true.
And that, something in opposition to Shiloh.
Right.
Shiloh was the closest thing they had to
Right.
what Jerusalem becomes.
Right, your point is well taken, because you have it earlier in the book.
Yeah.
You have it in Sefer Yoshua, when Reuven and Gad go to the other side, and they build a big bama, and the other tribes want to go to war because they say you are seceding from the union. And Yeravam ben Nevat, who sets up his temple up north, temples, does so because he doesn't want the Jews to go to the Jerusalem. So it is part of establishing yourself as a separate nation, and that's a very good question.
Yeah.
On the other one, one second, just want to say that this might depend on the question as to whether they abandoned their possession inside the land. See, if they abandon their possession in the land, then maybe you're right. Then maybe simply they're moving to a different place. On the other hand, if they kept the possession in the land, then and they have two places, but they're not. That's like Menashe's in both places.
But then also when the country ends up being divided, when the 10 tribes are conquered and only 2.5 remain, is this a foreshadowing of that? And that's what happened to the 10 tribes? What happened to after the kingship divided, and the 10 tribes ultimately then were conquered as a separate
No, Dan is
nation?
one of the 10 tribes. But I don't know.
The first few kings united the country. Then it split.
Right, the first two, right?
And the rest, then it split, and there was 2 countries.
Right,
And one of those countries was lost.
true.
And that this is all related to the same attempt to have something at the end of
Well,
judgment.
yes, in other words,
Yeah.
right. In other words, the point is, yes, I think it's related in the sense that the function of the king was supposed to be to unify the nation.
And it didn't work.
So you don't have a kingship, you have tribal nation. And what do you want to say back there? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, even before you started speaking, that this seems, in other words, Shimshon's parents didn't know anything. They had no knowledge whatsoever. And now in these last few stories, you see that they're trying to establish something. And this is the story of the book of Shmuel, about Shmuel. And what you said, the end, like the end of the book of Shmuel, that finally they have the appropriate, say, practice of Judaism. But this, if this didn't occur, this is the middle section that is driving them toward that. Very simple. That's all.
Right, I mean, what you have over here is a clear example of one tribe. Again, it's Wendy's question. Are they seceding from the union, or they're setting up an additional place? It's not. I mean, the truth is that in terms of the Bible, it's begun via Beersheba, so it's not perceived as outside. But from over here, it's represented as being, doing their own thing in a totally inappropriate way. It's interesting.
And even they're going
Maybe it's
against the
idols,
weak
but
of
it's
these nice people.
Something, and it's also seeking a priest and seeking a priest's blessing, like.
Agreed, right.
We don't see that. This is the first time we start to see that.
Yeah.
It appears to me that we're setting up Dan as a dominant part of the nation here. And so it's Dan in the north, and it's Yehuda in the south, and later it's Ephraim who will replace Dan. But clearly, there's always a distinction between the northern tribes, like you said, and the southern tribes. And it's starting right here, that we're making a dividing line. You got Pestel Micha in the north, and you got Shiloh in the south, and there's going to be a division that's going to stay right through the history.
Right, that was the point. Right, I agree with that point, yes?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I remember something about the tribes too, and in the Chumash, I think it was that a rabbi taught, he talked about the different colors that they had on the, it's called an ephod something.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true.
And that was with 12, right? That
Yes,
was
there are 12 tribes, so there are 12 stones on the ephod, that's true. No, there are certainly 12 tribes.
Right, yes.
It's also one nation, so that's always the tension. Is it 12 12 separate tribes, or is it one? And here Book of Judges, that is one of the main themes. And the Book of Judges, there's no king, so each tribe has its own identity. And then the question is, when each tribe has an identity, can they work together in tandem, or can they not? Okay, let's continue now. So this is the end of Pesel Micha. This is the part one of this coda. And now we come to the second story. Might even be worse than the first. I don't know, but now we're not going to finish the story. We do meet next week. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, we meet this. And what time is it now?
25 more minutes.
25 minutes. Okay, so let us begin with story number 2, and this is on page 560. It begins the same way. Vahi bayamim ahem umelech ein b'Yisrael. Once again, on those days there was no king. That's the beginning, and that's going to be the end also here. Vayhi ish Levi gar b'Yarketei Har Ephraim. There was a Levi who lived in Har Ephraim. Vayikachlo isha pilegesh mi Beit Lechem Yehuda. So here we have parallel to the first story. In the first story, in chapter 17, the first story is a man from Har Ephraim named Micha, and the Levi who comes, he comes from Beit Lechem Yehuda. He's traveling from Lechem Yehuda. That's in verse number 7 of chapter 17. Beit Lechem Yehuda, Mishpachet Yehuda, Hu Levi, Hu Gosha. So there you have the same two places. You have Ephraim on one hand and Yehuda on the other, which later does become the two main, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, of course. And now we have this particular man. He's a Levi. And Vayikacho Isha Pilegesh, he takes a woman, a Pilegesh. So one of the questions in the story, when you say Pilegesh, okay, over here, a Pilegesh in the Bible is I would say, a second-class wife, actually, of some sort. The precise definition of that is not clear. There's a whole discussion about that, but fundamentally, the wife is called an Isha, typically, and a Pilegesh is a Pilegesh. In the story over here, it's not exactly clear what the relationship is to this of the man to his wife, or Pilegesh, as we'll see. What's clear, though, in the story, pretty clear, is that it's not a very good relationship. That's for sure. But we'll see the story. And so we have in this particular story, maybe the last story as well, because in the last story you had two themes. You had a tribe that leaves its place and goes elsewhere inappropriately. And then you have, on the personal level, the Levi who leaves his place and goes elsewhere inappropriately. In the sense that he's leaving home, he's looking for employment. There's nothing wrong with that, but doesn't seem to care what kind of employment he takes. He's available for the highest bidder. Pesel, Masecha, Ephod, Trafim, and the people that he ends up actually, remember, he ends up taking the Pesel and Trafim himself. They say he takes himself. So he also, he was taken in by this fellow Micha, who seemed very pleasant as far as his relationship is concerned, and then he sort of stabs him in the back. So he's not a nice guy, basically. But my point is that on the personal level, the level of the individual person, is reflecting what takes place on the level of the nation, of the tribe. And now we have a similar situation here. Yes. Yeah, they're both stories are Levium. They're both Levium. He's a what? He defects. He sees it as a step up, no doubt. He's moving up to the priesthood.
The Levies are not land-bound. They're not.
That's right. The Levies are living in someone else's place. They were given territory. Yes, Shmuel, what do you have to say?
To that point, it perhaps is a not wordy critique of the Yisraels not keeping Maestros.
Maybe they're not. Maybe there's a critique. That's possible. Maybe there's a critique that whatever we think of the Levi, the fact that he has to go beg for employment, doesn't speak well for the nation taking responsibility for the marginalized people. That is certainly possible. Anyway, we have this Isha Pilegesh, fine. Vatizneh olav pilagsho. Vatelech be'ito el beit aviyah, el beit lechem Yehuda. Vatihishab yamim arba'a chodashim. His wife deserted him. Vatizneh usually means more than just deserting. Znut, act in a promiscuous manner, but the word liznot literally means to stray. So she strayed from him. It could mean that she strayed from him in other ways, or it could mean that she strayed in the sense that she deserts him, and she leaves Ephraim, right, Har Ephraim, and she runs off back to Yehuda. She goes back home basically to Beit Lechem Yehuda, and she is there. Vatihisham Yamim Arba'a Chodashim. She's there. If Yamim means a year, here they translate in the JPS a full 4 months. Yamim v'arba'a chodashim could mean that. It's not clear. I'm just thinking now as I'm reading this. One second. I'm wondering about this now in terms of here. So you have it with the story in the beginning of Shmuel where the ark is captured. The ark is captured by the Philistines. Vahi aron Hashem b'stei plishtim shiva chodashim. So the ark is in the land of the Philistines for 7 months. Now what about David? What about King David?
14 years.
No, it's not 14 years. No. Not 14 years. I mean, how long was he there for? 40 years is a little long. How long is David with the Philistines? Let's see, where is David with the Philistines? Where is David with the Philistines? Who could find this? Yes, I knew it rang a bell. Page 634. Very interesting. 634. David runs off to the Philistines. Saul is trying to kill him. David says, I got to run off to the Philistines. The book does not critique David for doing that, which does not mean that it approves of it. Usually the writer takes no position about very much, just reports, it supposedly reports the information. Of course, this critiques all along the way. Vahi mispar chodashim, mispar hayamim,
Where is this?
page 634, chapter 27 of 1 Samuel, verse number 7. Vahi mispar hayamim asher yoshav David b'stei plishtim. Take a wild guess. Yamim v'arba'a chodashim. Now, I remember that, you know? And that's very interesting. Because it's a very strange time. And it strikes me, actually, 2 things. I say the book doesn't critique. The Torah in general doesn't critique it at all. It reports, supposedly. But it does critique in the sense, because in the Torah, it's not that you're punished for what you do for the most part. The main characters aren't punished for what they do. Because suffering is not a punishment. It's a consequence. You behave in a certain way, these things are going to happen. That's how the Torah presents it. Now, David going off to the Philistines is, in my mind, without question, problematic. Because it's one thing to say you got to run away from Saul, he's after you. But you're running to the Philistines, who in the book of Shmuel are not just the enemy of the Jews, they're also God's enemy. But they're also, and not only that, when David runs off to the Philistines, which is chapter 27, in chapter 29, he's invited to go and to, or even 28, beginning of 20, he's invited by the king of the Philistines to join him in battle against Israel. And David starts actually marching with them. Now, whatever David's intention was, that's a very interesting question because the book of Shmuel leaves David's intentions extremely murky. It's hard to believe that he would actually fight against Israel, and there's good reason to believe he wouldn't, but we can't be 100% certain. He does start out marching with the Philistine troops, and by the way, the reader knows already, because in chapter 28 we have the witch of Endor, and we know Saul's going to die in that battle, and Israel probably will be defeated. So David is marching with the enemy troops. It's not just a neutral bad country. It's like going down to Egypt to get food. You actually, I mean, you're like what can I say? It's like if Begin lost the election, Menachem Begin, and he runs off to stay with Assad's father, the other murderer. What's his first name? Hafiz Assad. He lost the election, goes off to Assad. That's what it is, basically. Or maybe even worse than that. So the point is, there are two stories of somebody who leaves their place and goes elsewhere. The second one is the ark. The ark in the land of the Philistines, it doesn't belong in the land of the Philistines. Whatever Israel did, it doesn't belong with Israel either. But the idea of the ark circulating in the Philistine cities, that's a horrible, that's just ridiculous. And now we have, but that's 7 months, right? And now you have Yamim Arba'a Chodoshim. The same language is used in Shmuel. That's the amount of time that the concubine, and it's called Vatizneh. The concubine deserts her husband. It's the same amount of time that David deserts the land of Israel. It cannot be an accident. The point is, but there's no overt critique whatsoever. Just reporting the information, right?
The translation is different.
What?
There he says a year and 4 months, because it's v'arba'a chador. And here he says in the English, just a full 4 months.
That's what JPS says.
Yes.
So the point is, it could be, again, right, so I started at the very beginning about the Vav. Sometimes the Vav is an explicit. Pesa u'masecha means Pesa, which is the Masecha. I don't know, but what I do know is it's basically the same amount of time. It cannot be an accident. It's not an accident. And it's intended to get us to see David's deserting to the Philistines as extraordinarily problematic. Now, we have other reasons to know that, apart from this, but I thought it was very interesting. The little details, their importance. So
you assume Sefer Shmuel had Shoftim in front of it?
for sure. I assume, well, we have no clue who wrote these books. Let's start with that.
But it's not the same author.
Shoftim and Shmuel sound different.
But
That
he
is
had
true.
this in front of him.
Right. Or he had oral traditions in front of him.
Yeah.
Or he had oral traditions. We don't know. There may have been hundreds of traditions, but we don't know what they are. But I would say that certainly the commonality is very striking, that's all. And it's, right, okay. Now let's begin the story. Fine. So the woman runs away from it. By the way, after you read the story, you can see why she might want to run away from him. You know what I mean? Right. But we don't know that yet. We don't know what a jerk this guy is.
Looking in retrospect,
Yeah?
looking at the whole story,
Right.
the fact that she, especially since it's called Vatikach Isha Pilegesh, depending on how he's treated or we were expected to read forwards and backwards, maybe she ran back to her father's house because the guy was clearly abusing her. So what I'm saying is, that's not a stretch. I think that's possibly a proper reading of it. And so if
Possible.
that's so, how does that impact on what you just said, which is the implicit criticism of David leaving his place and going and staying in the wrong place?
Let's put it this way. I would say two things. First of all, we don't know yet that this guy is, what kind of jerk he is. The fact that he takes a pilegesh, so did Abraham take pilagshim. I mean, that's not the point. My point was, we don't know anything yet, but here's what we do know. That the word vatizneh is always negative. That's what we know. Vatizneh, love pilagsho, you will not find a single example of the word znut being good. It doesn't exist, okay? So it's a bad word. Vatizneh means, right? Ashatem zonim achareim, does it, we turn away from God, that's bad. Straying is a bad thing. So vatizneh is always, it's like sort of losing your way in the book of Genesis. Losing your way in the book of Genesis, whether it's Joseph who gets lost or Hagar, is not about a poor sense of direction. It's not about that. It's a critique. The word to'eh, which is found 3 and maybe 4 times, is always negative. Always. Vatelach vateta is negative. Hituotio hini beitavi is negative. To'eh basadeh is negative. And the fourth that my wife has suggested, vayiti beinav ki mitateya, also maybe. They're all negative. So that's, vatizneh is a negative and nothing even to talk about. That's negative, yes.
The main thing about Pilegesh is, if I'm not wrong, that her children do not inherit. That's the main.
That is possible. We don't actually, it's not clear. It's clear that that is certainly a possibility. But if she's a second-class citizen, that's for certain. Anyway, Vayakam Isha, here's called Isha, Vayelech Achareha, L'daber al liba lashiva. So L'daber al liba is positive, to talk to her tenderly. He wants to bring her back. That is a phrase that's positive. V'naro imo v'tzemed chamorim. Now we're told another detail. He goes with Nar and his chamorim. Now we'll get to this later on. That combination we've seen in other places in the Bible, including Abraham. But anyway, Vatviyeu Beit Aviyah. She brought him into her father's house. Vayireu Aviyah Nara Vayismach Likrato. So she brings him to the father, and the father is happy to see him. He's very happy to meet this, I guess call him the husband, or whatever. Fine. Vayachazek bo chotno Aviyah Nara Vayeshev ito shloshet yamim. So literally he grabbed onto him, and he sits with him for 3 days. Vayochlu, vayishtu, vayolinu sham. They're eating and drinking. He's sleeping there. There seems to be a bond between the father-in-law of sorts and the right and the Levi. It reminds us actually, to some extent, of Moshe. Actually, once again, back to Moshe, who comes to the land of Midian. And Yitro, Vayor Moshe Loshevet et Ish, and Yitro actually gives him his daughter. Moshe doesn't have any interest in the daughter, but he has an interest in Yitro. That's a very important point. What?
And vice versa.
And
that's the relationship.
The relationship is between Yitro and Moshe is a deep, positive relationship. They are both religious people, and they have a similar outlook, actually, which is they obsessed with justice. From the very beginning, Yitro is a priest obsessed with justice, and he also later on gives advice about the court system and all that. But from the very beginning, how come you're home so early? Some Egyptian guy saved us. Saved you? Where is he? Hitzil means to save the weak from the strong. Where is he? Kirin Lova Yochal Lechem. I got to eat with him. And later on also, Yitro comes to reunite with Moshe. He brings the wife and the kids. Moshe ignores the wife and kids. He brings Yitro into his tent. He ignores the wife. He doesn't care about her, actually. He's not father of the year, let's put it that way. He doesn't care about her. He cares about Yitro. He loves Yitro because they are a common spirit. One might say Yitro was Moses' Rebbe, actually. Could be his first Rebbe, and his only real friend. So here you have the same thing. These eating and drinking, stay there. On the 4th day, they get up early in the morning. Very strange. He gets up to leave. We even have the lechem here. Why do you eat? Why do you stay here some more? Stay. Let's eat together. And they eat together. Yachdav. It's a very powerful link over here. Why do you stay over another night? Because it's they're eating. So he wants to leave. So the father insists. So he stays. Now he's there 4 days. Now the 5th day comes. He wants to go back. Why don't you eat again? Another meal, right? Another meal. Why don't you wait? It's in the usual word. Why don't you wait, delay until the day is till the afternoon? With lot. Also vayiftzar with lot. It's a lot. It's all about bringing the stranger into the house. This already is foreshadowing what's going to happen later, because the story of Lot is the main story of Pilagish Bagiva. Story of Sodom, which of course has been noted by many, including the Ramban at great length. We'll get there. So the two of them eat together. By the way, they eat together, Yachdav and Shnehem. Where the wife is in all this, I have no idea. It doesn't seem like she's at the meal. Maybe she's serving them. Who knows where she is? Who knows where she is? We don't know. So they're about to leave.
How do you know there's a wife?
Pilegesh, I'm calling you off. That one. She's one of the main characters. It's a brutal story. No, but the man gets up to leave now. It's the 5th day with his pilegesh and his nar. It's very late already, he says. You don't want to travel, it's so late. Why do you stay overnight? Why do you stay already? Because it's so late. It's already in the afternoon. So why do you stay? Another day. But the man refuses to stay. He refuses to stay. So now he's traveling home. He's near Jerusalem, which is called Yevus, because the Yevusi are in control of the city. Yevus is the one city that hasn't been captured, basically. The rest of the land was captured by Barak, Devorah. That's why there's a song afterwards, because they complete the conquest. Except for Jerusalem, which is called Yevus. He Yerushalayim. The Imo. And with him, Semed Chamorim Chavushim, Upilag Sho Imo. And he had with him a pair of laden donkeys, and his concubine was with him. I would call it, what?
What happened in Nar?
The Nar is mentioned too, I believe, no? The Nar is mentioned, right, the Nar is there too. I would call our attention to the order over here. He has the donkeys, and he has his concubine.
Just like
Right?
with Avram.
What?
Just like with
Exactly.
Avram coming out of Egypt.
Exactly. The order is very significant. That's exactly on target. With Abraham, when he comes out of Egypt, Lot is, you have to see the order of things. Even the beginning of Abraham, by the way, when he first leaves, he takes, Vayikach Avram et Sarai ishto, v'yet Lot ben Achiv. He took Sarah, his wife, and Lot. V'yet kol rechusham asher rachashu, and all his possessions, v'yet hanefesh asher asu b'charan. And the people, they took from people, slaves, converts, who knows. The Rechush is mentioned before the people, which is very important in the Abraham story, where Rechush figures in. So the order is very significant. He made this big spiel about bringing back his Pilegesh, big deal. He speaks tenderly to her. Then he stays for 4 days, 5 days, whatever. Now he's leaving very late, which is dangerous to do. And now he comes to Yevus. Fine. The question that I think we're supposed to be thinking about, and we'll have to stop in a couple of minutes, and we'll continue next week. We'll finish it. What time is that? Give me one minute.
2 more minutes.
Wait. So the point we got to think about, this is a story where things go very bad. And when they go very bad, you always wonder, how were they in the beginning? So already we get a sense that this character, who's desperate to bring back this Pilegesh, you wonder why. He really is in love with his Pilegesh, or it's an affront to him that she left him? This is the question. So he's traveling back with his Chamorim and his Pilegesh too. And then the over here, Heimim Yevus, last verse, Vayom Rad Ma'od, it's getting very late. Vayomer Hanar Aladonav, L'chanav V'nosura Lo'ir HaYevusi Azot V'nolinba. So the Nar says, listen, it's very dark, why don't we turn it over here to this city, Yevus? He's aware that it's the city of Yevus. Why don't we turn aside to the Yevusi city and sleep here? And then the guy says, Vayomer Adonav, Lo Nosura Lo'ir Nachri. I don't want to go to a city of foreigners. Asherlo b'bnei Yisrael, they're not Jews. If you're Avadnu, I'd give her. Let's keep traveling to give her. Famous last words. And this is so we'll deal with this next week, which will be the last of these sessions. We won't finish the whole story, but I don't want to skip over this, as every pasuk is interesting. So today we completed the story of Dan, and then we started Pilegesh by Giva. So next week we'll continue with Pilegesh by Giva, and we'll see how far we get. Okay.